So hello everyone, welcome to EduTap. I'm Surbhi and this is Perspective 360 Degree, your one-stop solution for current affairs, descriptive writing and answer writing evaluation. As you know that today's topic is food subsidies. Why does the West oppose India at WTO? And this has not happened for the first time, it has been happening year after year. So what are the reasons for the same? We are going to look at some of the reasons and we are also going to identify that what are the structural issues associated with the same. Before that, let me know in the chat section if the audio is clear and if you can see me properly, if you can see this PPT going in your screen and going out of your screen, and now it should be clear. So for those of you who are joining me at EduTap for the first time, if you're preparing for any exam which has descriptive component in any of the phases, whether it's RBI Grade B, SEBI Grade A legal or a NABARD examination, in all these regulatory bodies examinations, the phase 2 portion contains descriptive portion which students find it very hard because this is becoming very current affairs based because of the changing needs of time, because of the rising competition, and hence EduTap has brought up this initiative called Perspective 360 Degree, where one, we teach you current affairs from descriptive portion point of view. Secondly, we teach you how to do descriptive writing, how to segregate the content that you just studied according to the needs of the answer. So we take a question and answer approach to carry Perspective 360 degree discussions forward. Thirdly, we also ask for your answers. So if you want free evaluation services, EduTap provides that. Happy news for you. So you can post your answers in the comment section under this video and our evaluators will provide you with free feedback, but the only terms and conditions here are that the comment has to be posted in the next 48 hours after today's discussion. That means by Wednesday 5 p.m. you have to post. Alright, so I see a lot of students returning and many of you who are actually joining for the first time. So we have a new background today. It contains a lot of books that to keep us motivated. So Shriyanshi, good evening. Ashmita, Asha, Amit, Iftisham, Dark Rose, Mowgli, Amit Gupta, okay, Mowgli again, yes. So good evening all of you. This is not the first lecture of Perspective 360 Degree. This is the 63rd lecture. While it could be your first lecture as well, in that case you can go back to the previous lectures and watch the previous discussions. Also there is a benefit that the discussion that is being carried out here today and the previous ones as well, all the PDFs have been uploaded on our Telegram channel. Today's PDF will be uploaded by tomorrow morning so that you can have access to all the content. You don't have to make any notes from your side, but I do recommend whenever you are studying or listening to anything, do have something to scribble side by side so that your brain notes down what actually new information you're learning. So food subsidies is the topic for today. So as you can see, this this is a hand that is trying to access food and this belongs to India, and here you see some people who look like your Western counterparts, people from the West dressed up in suits who have an eye on this meal, who have this eye on the food. So this is this is from Hindustan Times, a very beautiful cartoonscape from them. Let's look at what has been the headline regarding WTO food subsidies and what is the issue about. So India stands firm at WTO. Our food subsidies ensure global food security. So that has been a statement given by Indian ministries. Then from Hindustan Times, this is a very important one, and if you can get access to this article, please read this on your own. India unlikely to engage on agricultural issues at key WTO meet. So the ministerial conference of WTO, which is the highest decision making body, is supposed to be held in is supposed to be held towards the end of February this year. Around 25th of February it will be held in Abu Dhabi. So now the question is before India. Now there have been challenges against India at WTO, challenges for the MSP that we are providing, that India is providing minimum support price to its farmers, and trade is distorted or food prices are distorted because of that. And this is the reason that Western counterparts, Western countries, they're not able to compete with Indian food grains in the global market or are not able to enter even the domestic market of India. When you go to a very highly priced shop, wherever you see any kind of imported food grains, though they are fancy according to the quality, also things might vary, but they are very expensive in Indian markets. So that's the underlying issue behind this. There are a lot of news articles covering this issue in various different ways. So no farm issues until food stock issue is resolved. India before WTO. That has been the mint. And UK, US oppose extending WTO food subsidy clause. So what is the clause? And this news is from July 2023. That means you can be very much sure that this issue is rising from time to time. This is from September, the other one, and then 2 weeks ago again from September, and 3 weeks ago. So public stockholding, MSP, food subsidies, fertilizer subsidies, peace clause, Nairobi package, everything will be discussed in today's lecture. So just grab your seats. Okay, I'm not visible. Is there a problem with anyone else who is having the problem of visibility? Can you see me, guys? So please have a session on fiscal consolidation. We'll do that. Global Economic Prospects Report. Okay, I think that has been done. Good evening, all of you. Guys, can you see me clearly? Okay. So now moving on to looking at the relevance of this topic from RBI Grade B perspective. You have the paper one, that is economic and social issues. Under that there is a topic called Indian agriculture, and the other topic is World Trade Organization, WTO. So this topic is related to both of these parts of your syllabus. For NABARD Grade A examination, again, issues in food security in India, and the second topic is WTO, where you find relevance for this. Alright, thank you. Thanks for alright, all of you, thanks for confirming. Thank you, Veenu ma'am, and all others. So thank you, guys. Then for SEBI Grade A, again, for English writing skills, this topic is important. For other parts of the syllabus, sadly, anything related to agriculture has not been mentioned as part of SEBI Grade A syllabus, because that syllabus focuses more on the legal portion of your exam and more on the finance part. So now let's fire the question. Let's see what question is expected, and this is going to be a tough one, guys. So highlight the various issues raised at WTO regarding agricultural subsidies provided by India. So what is the issue of India with regards to agricultural subsidy that gets questioned and that erupts from time to time at WTO? So also, do you think there is a need to relook into subsidy norms at WTO? Explain. Answer for 600 words, that is for 15 marks. If you're preparing for any of these examinations, I would recommend that you go back to your static notes and at least understand what type of subsidies are covered under WTO norms. We'll be touching on them lightly here, but a static question which talks about discuss the direct and indirect subsidies provided or recognized under WTO, that can be asked as well. Since Perspective 360 focuses on the current affairs, hence the question today is current affairs based. So this is the answer blueprint, which means that your answer has to be divided into 3 parts: introduction, main body, and conclusion. So let's look at what do we write in introduction. See, there can be 2 cases where something has been asked directly to be written in the introduction. For example, what are subsidies? If such a question has not been given to you, then kindly start by talking about the topic in the question lightly. Give basic information about the topic under discussion. For example, in this case, agricultural subsidies provided by India. That is the topic under discussion. So our introduction will contain overview of agricultural subsidies, so that we have laid or we have given to the examiner the basic information that will be used in the body paragraphs or the next part of our answer to give clarity or to give some perspective. So now in the body part 1, we'll be talking about various issues that have been raised at WTO from time to time and why Indian food subsidy regime is being questioned from time to time. Then body part 2 will be talking about why there is a need to relook at this subsidy. So if you focus on the second part, they're asking you, do you think that there is a need to relook into subsidy norms at WTO? The answer should be yes. If you're not a US or UK citizen, if you're an Indian citizen, the answer should be yes for you. And why it should be yes, that has to be explained in body part 2. That is why there is a need to relook at this subsidy regime. So are there any harmful effects of these? Are there any problems arising of the subsidy regime that is prevalent? And finally, in the conclusion, we'll give a way forward where we'll conclude all the parts of the answer, and we'll provide solutions if any. So coming to the introduction part, but I have some screenshots for you. This is from World Trade Organization. So subsidies or agricultural subsidies under World Trade Organization. You know, WTO is the international organization which looks after global trade. It looks after that everybody benefits from global trade. If India is sending some goods to US is sending some goods to India, import export is happening, then both the countries should benefit. That means WTO has the responsibility of establishing transparency in global trade. Alright, so also for establishing this transparency and accountability, obviously it has certain acts, it has certain legislations, and it has certain rules. And India is one of the founding members of WTO, World Trade Organization. After the LPG reforms, 1st January 1995, when WTO actually began functioning. So since then, India has been a member, India has been a founding member, and we abide by almost all the policies and rules of WTO, but not at the cost of our own country. That is where issues regarding intellectual property rights, issues regarding agricultural and food subsidies arise at WTO, and these are mostly brought up by the richer countries of the world. Richer countries can be, you can talk about these countries as the global north, which also includes Australia. So regarding subsidies at WTO, as you see that there can be 3 colored lights on a traffic light: red, yellow and green. So WTO says that similarly on these lines we have implemented some subsidies. For example, red means stop. Stop means these subsidies have to be stopped because they are distorting international trade. Yellow subsidies, that means we can wait for some time for that to people to actually stop them, to countries to actually stop them. Then the green subsidies are actually that means they can go on forever. WTO does not have any problem with it. These are not trade distorting subsidies. Okay. So green, amber is for slow down. We call that yellow, but it's for amber, that means slow down, and red is forbidden. In terms of agricultural subsidies, since agriculture means it directly implies food production or cotton production, or you know that there are many poor nations in the world which do not have any other technology, but they are good in agricultural production only. So in agriculture, a lot of poor people are dependent for their livelihoods. So WTO has said that for agriculture we cannot have red subsidies. That means we cannot ask subsidies to be stopped, but for agriculture only amber subsidies and green subsidies are there. There is additional box which is called blue subsidies. That means subsidies which do not distort trade but which can be allowed in like certain limits. Alright, so this is the green box, amber box and blue box. This is your agricultural subsidies. So green box, they do not distort trade. For example, if you are carrying education for farmers or more research is being carried out in the field of agriculture, that will be your green box. It is not harming any trade practice in the global arena. In the amber box, you have to limit the subsidies. These subsidies have to be done away with time. So these subsidies, they also include fertilizer subsidies which are provided by India. These subsidies also include the water and electricity subsidy or support that is being provided by India to its farmers, so that agriculture can sustain more and more livelihoods. It can be a profitable activity, it can be a profitable occupation. So all these subsidies of India, they fall under the amber box, and this is where the issue lies. So this covers a broad range of subsidies, and it is limited to 5% of agricultural production. And this 5%, this limit is raised. This is a higher limit for developing countries. That means up to 10% of entire agricultural production for developing countries, this is allowed. So India does have the benefit, but here is a catch, that total benefit is not as high as it seems. It is not higher than the developed countries. Then the blue box contains, like, if you want to leave the land fallow for a few years so that it's so that its regenerative capacity can increase. So for that years, for let's say 2 years, if the farmer is leaving the land fallow, then for that time the government has to support the farmer economically, financially. So those subsidies to support the farmer financially so that he can leave his land fallow and work on the carrying capacity of that land and fertility of land. These are provided under blue box. Now this amber box subsidies, they have to be done away with time, or they have to be brought down, but there is something called the peace clause. Like if you even breach the amber box subsidy and you are coming from a developing country, even the breaching of amber box subsidy by a few points does not invite a legal sanction against that country. For example, if India tries to breach the amber box subsidy by providing more subsidies for fertilizers, etc., even then it cannot invite a legal sanction. It cannot be legally sanctioned because of this clause called the peace clause, because developing countries like India need to provide for their poor population, need to provide for improving their agriculture. So peace clause protects India's food procurement program against action from WTO members in case the subsidy ceilings, that is 10% of value of food production in India's case, are breached. Now this peace clause, it is an interim clause. That means it is not a permanent measure, and hence from time to time the US, UK, countries like Australia, they have objected to the peace clause, and this is one of the issues that keeps on arising at WTO. Alright, so that's why there was this article in the HT. Kindly read this out, that many moves opposed by Australia, Brazil, Canada, New Zealand, etc. move regarding public stockholding. Now first thing, India provides subsidies for production of agriculture. Secondly, we also have public stockholding of food grains, because as I told you a few lectures ago, India is very much afraid of a famine. India is very much afraid of food grains being a population, food grains being a problem when it comes to feeding its population. Hence, we maintain public stockholding of food grains under the National Food Security Act. We also provide for public distribution system. That means subsidized food grains are available to poor people or members of BPL families, and these rates are very much subsidized. They are available at a low rate. Now the Western countries have a problem, that because their own food grains are not able to compete in Indian market and at the international market because of the heavy subsidies India is providing. Secondly, the public stock holding of food grains enables India to release food grains in the global market whenever there is a decrease in flow of food grains in the international markets. That means India can utilize a situation of a natural disaster or a famine in some other country in its favor by releasing its public stock holdings. So that is the charge that has been led against India at WTO. So now let's frame an answer. First of all, in the introduction, let's start by defining what agricultural subsidies are. Why does India provide for agricultural or food subsidies? What percentage of GDP goes around in these subsidies? And what are the issues that are raised with time? So agricultural subsidies, they are financial aids provided by government to support farmers in improving their income, reducing the cost of farming, and promoting agricultural sustainability. You can talk about subsidized urea here, or subsidy that is given for fertilizers, electricity, water, anything like that, that makes agriculture more profitable and it decreases the issues for farmers in producing food grains. So these subsidies play a crucial role in maintaining the health of farm sector, especially in developing economies like India. Thirdly, India has a long history of implementing food-based welfare schemes to address hunger and malnutrition. Hence, farm subsidies become essential because, we want production of more food grains to provide for or to tackle the issue of hunger and malnutrition. So hence, farm subsidies, they become essential as they help in building public stock holding to ensure food security programs such as Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana. You can talk about the National Food Security Act of 2013. You can talk about the PDS, that these are all synonymous terms. You can talk about that, and you, with the help of commas, you can write that in your answer. So farm subsidies, they constitute about 2% of India's GDP. That's even more than what India is spending on health. Okay, so now here we'll briefly highlight the issue so that we can introduce the body part 1, that what are the issues being raised at WTO. So but India's agricultural subsidies have come under global scrutiny from time to time, and here in the bracket I've given two examples. The first example is of USA, which questioned legality of India's minimum support price, MSP, for rice, wheat and cotton. It said that India is breaching the limits of MSP. It said that MSP is a trade distorting measure, and also Australia filed a suit against India at WTO by raising similar questions, not for rice, wheat and cotton, but for sugarcane. All right, for sugarcane, you have fair and remunerative price and state advice price. That's for there. For other crops, you have MSP. So these issues have been raised. Just mention one or two examples of countries and the crops that they have brought into question, and you will be sorted for your introduction part. So the issue of agricultural subsidies has largely been approached at WTO from two angles. The first one is the trade distortion angle, and the second is food security angle. So the developing countries want food security, the developed countries want transparency in trade. So WTO Agriculture Agreement, it provides for all the kinds of subsidies. It distinguishes between agricultural subsidies that distort production and trade, and those that do not, or do so minimally. So that's, a lot of information. I'm not demanding you to write all of it, but these are, somewhat interlinked and unlinked points. Just choose for yourself where do you want to start writing, and do you want to start with WTO, or do you want to start writing about agricultural subsidies only. But make sure you're giving a clear picture about what is the story behind this question, and that story should be very much clear. So this is another screenshot for your interest. This is from a non-profit called Global Justice Now, and this is from November 2015, where your Nairobi package for agriculture was brought in, and it was said that developed countries, they have this the stand is a dual stand that developed countries are taking, because they themselves are providing a lot of subsidies. The aggregate sum of subsidies provided by developed countries is very high to their farmers, and then they're questioning why is India and why are other developing nations providing subsidies. So you can read out that article, or at least the brief summary that I have attached with the PDF. Now, what are the issues? There are broadly 4 issues. First one, amber box subsidies, as I have explained. The second is export subsidies. The third one is domestic support. And the fourth issue is public stockholding. Most of these are related. When it comes to amber box subsidies, just say that according to WTO norms, these subsidies have to be reduced or eliminated. Now, the problem here is that India needs such subsidies for its small scale farmers, and fertilizer subsidies, for example, fall under this category. And to enhance crop yields, India needs these subsidies. But on the other hand, developed countries say that because of these fertilizer subsidies, the amount of pesticides or the fertilizers that farmers are using in production of crops, that is rising. That means toxicity in food grains, that is rising, and that is because of the subsidies given by India. Then the second one is export subsidies. So India's subsidies for agriculture exports, such as sugar, they have faced criticism from WTO members like Brazil and Australia for distorting global prices. So nobody wants that some other country should be making its exports cheaper, because again, then people will be motivated to buy the cheaper products, for even if they are exported, or even if they are imported to a certain country. So these subsidies give Indian producers an unfair advantage in the international market. Few lectures back, we also covered the agricultural export policy. So under that, you might know that support for agriculture export is not that high, and we are trying to improve on that. So focus on that lecture also when you're reading this one, that what is the kind of agricultural export support that is provided by the country. Then the third one is domestic support, and domestic support talks about MSP. That means MSP is actually motivating farmers to produce more and more food grains. First of all, developed countries say diversification of crops is lacking, and and these crops, for example, rice and wheat, they sell at a very high price. So India is taking an advantage of this, because it is motivating farmers to produce more and more by using MSP as a tool. So the MSP which is given to wheat and rice farmers in India has been cited by WTO as distorting trade. It claims that such domestic support inflates Indian exports, creating an imbalanced trading environment. That means exports are high because production is high in India, which gives India an advantage. Then there is public stockholding. That's another issue which I've already explained, that India's policy of maintaining large food grain reserves for food security has been a contentious issue. For example, FCI buys large quantities of wheat and rice, which the WTO claims can distort market practices. And just to tell you, because India has this public stock holding, that means it can sell food grains to poorer countries at a very low price. That means markets in poorer countries, they are already distorted. The western counterparts or the developed countries cannot enter there because India is already providing food grains at a very low price. Secondly, India also provides free food grains whenever a country requests it. For example, when there was a problem in Sri Lanka, there was a like last year, for the past few years, Sri Lanka has not been in a good financial situation. So when the country actually went bankrupt, then India actually sent a lot of food grains to feed the hungry to ensure that people are not dying of hunger there. And similarly for the Rohingya migrants also, the first help India is providing to any country which is struck by a disaster or any other problem, the first help India is providing is free availability of food grains. So public stock holding for these many issues has been contended by Western counterparts, that this public stock holding should not be there in India. Then why there is a need to relook at that? Also, do you think that there is a need to relook into subsidy norms at WTO? Now, how will you start this body part? First of all, just establish what is your stand, that there is definitely a need to relook into subsidy norms at WTO. This can be explained with the help of following points. So this linkage point is very much necessary after introduction, after every body part, and finally before the conclusion as well. So now in the body part 2, why there is a need to relook. First of all, unequal opportunities to global south. WTO, like all other international organizations, has been criticized for being more oriented towards the west or developed countries, and hence global south, which mostly consists of poorer countries or developing countries, these countries have been overlooked. So the global south, first of all, it refers to Asia, Africa and South America. You don't have to mention it there, just start writing about global south. So in general, the viewpoints of global south and emerging markets have not been given equal weight as those of developed nations in trade discussions. So India has emerged as a major producer of food grains. Besides ensuring food security of its people, it is also a major exporter, contributing in food security of the world. And it is because efforts of India that food prices or food grain prices in the global markets have been kept under check. Food prices or food grain prices, they have not been very high. And here we are appreciating the efforts of India, and that's why because of the efforts of India, this is the reason actually that why such subsidies are important and why WTO needs to relook at how it is carrying out subsidy regulations. Then the second one is issues with food subsidy limit. Expressing it here, there is an issue with the reference price adopted under global trade norms. For example, I told you the 5% limit for developed countries and the 10% limit for developing countries. Now 5% of what and 10% of what? So it actually takes into a base year of 1986 and 1988. During 1986 and 1988, that was the time when Green Revolution was picking pace. That means at that time, India was not providing to its farmers a lot of subsidies in terms of monetary value. So the value of a rupee has also changed with time, and India needs more subsidies to feed its ever increasing population. But the level that has been set to look at subsidies or to look at comparative level of subsidies, that is the year of 1986 to 88, and according to that level, developed countries are benefiting more because they were already providing high subsidies. So subsidies of 86 and 5% of that for a country like US converts to a very higher amount as compared to what it converts for India, because India was providing almost no subsidies or very low subsidies during that time in terms of monetary value. So that's very much contentious, and this was challenged at WTO multiple times, and this is the reason to just ignore any changes in this. This was the reason that peace clause was brought in, that even if you escape these subsidy limits, no legal sanctions will be laid. All right, so that is why peace clause was brought in, so that developing countries can function on their own and developed countries can also stay peacefully. Everybody can provide subsidies for their farmers. Then subsidies for agriculture and poor farmers in developing countries were not counted at all and were frozen by WTO. That's the issue, as I've explained. Then there is rising food insecurity. So here you can emphasize on the COVID-19 pandemic, the Russia-Ukraine crisis, the rising, the issue of Gaza, the Gaza conflict, the climate change crisis, which are actually pushing many people into poverty and hunger. So if we have to provide food security for the world, then efforts of countries like India need to be acclaimed. So under PDS, 67% of your population is getting subsidized food grains, and under the recent Anna Yojana that was brought in during the COVID-19 pandemic, almost 80% of your population got subsidized food grains. So that's a huge number, and that's a huge success for India as well. And this model, it has to be appreciated rather than being brought down because of trade distortion. So the challenges on food security posed by the COVID-19 pandemic and Russia-Ukraine conflict have once again emphasized to relook these subsidy norms, as food and fertilizer security have become more important now, and especially due to the upcoming of climate change. You see a lot of pest attacks happening at a very wide scale. You see a lot of natural disasters. Hence, food security is an issue now, and WTO needs to take this into consideration. So it is a comparatively, food security is comparatively stronger in developed countries rather than in developing countries. Developing countries are more vulnerable to food insecurity or food scarcity. So hence, this unbalanced nature of trade agreements has to be done away with. Then finally, India's demand. India has been demanding that this peace clause, which is an interim measure, should be converted into a permanent measure. That means India should be allowed to provide food subsidies without having to bring them down or without having the fear of breaching that limit. So the COVID-19 pandemic caused not only a health crisis but an even deeper economic crisis in India, and food insecurity in the country has risen. So this can be used for point number 3. Justification of that. Let's look at point number 4. So as part of a permanent solution, India has asked for measures like amendments in the formula to calculate the food subsidy cap and inclusion of programs implemented after 2013 under the ambit of peace clause. So that's that's why there is a need to relook at all of these, that because solution has also been provided. Now in the conclusion, let's look at a way forward. But before moving on to the way forward, first of all, let me know in the chat section if there are any additions that you want to make or anything that is not clear to you till now. Yes, food security is comparatively stronger in developed countries. That's sober realist, that's right. And de minimis level of subsidies, that is also right. Thank you, Ashok sir. Thank you, Veenu ma'am. How to join Descriptive RBI course? Kindly contact our support. I'll display the number at the end of this lecture. Kindly contact them. They'll let you know. So, okay. Thanks, Subir. Okay. So, no doubts coming in, guys. So this one has been intense. Now what will be the way forward that you give? First of all, you have to take a stand for India. You have to emphasize that, let's sum up the first part of this question. The first part of this question talks about issues raised at WTO against India. So if you have to sum up this part, that means you need to justify in favor of India that yes, there have been issues raised, but India is right on its stand. And why is it right? That has to be explained. And do you think there is a need to relook into subsidy norms? So that has been explained in the answer itself. We'll summarize this and we'll provide a way forward, that how relooking at these subsidy norms can be done, and that in a way it favors all of the above. Also in the introduction we talked about that WTO trade rules or subsidy norms, they talk about food security and trade security, two things, but they don't talk about environmental security. So kindly add that also as a way forward. With the changing needs of time, environmental security also has to be made a part of the discussion. So first of all, summarizing the first part, and this is going to be a continuous conclusion for you. You'll just have one paragraph which will contain your way forward and conclusion both. Don't segregate them. This segregation of information is just for your better understanding and presentation. So food security is of prime importance to India, emphasizing on that, and the government's input subsidies to its poor farmers, such as free electricity, irrigation facilities, fertilizers, and direct transfers of rupees 6,000 to over 95 million farmers. That here we are talking about the PM Kisan scheme, are non-negotiable. Alright, so these subsidies, they are non-negotiable. Even PM Kisan has been challenged at the global level that India is giving money to farmers. so that they can improve agriculture, and food grains can be attained at a cheaper cost by Indian government and then can be sold at higher prices in the global market. So PM Kisan has been challenged as well. So just mention all these subsidies. Also, you can mention them in the introduction part. We didn't do it there. So just say that it is non-negotiable, or if you don't want to use this word, just say that by providing subsidized food to its citizens, it is also helping the world in keeping global food prices under control. So again, a justification. Besides, India has been providing food items to poor countries on request. So again, another justification. You can choose to write all these 3 points or at least one of these to sum up the first part. Now in the second part, give a way forward and join it with the first part itself. So in the longer term, first of all, a radical overhaul of international trade institutions and policies is required, because whatever institution that you see, international organization like UN Security Council, World Trade Organization, every organization is under question because the demands of time, they are changing, and and the power the power dynamics are also changing at a global level. For example, India is the biggest market. We are the biggest country in terms of population according to UNFPA. So things have to change with time. The trade rules also have to evolve with time in a way that benefits everyone. So the current trade system needs to be replaced with one that promotes social and economic justice. So don't mention just economic justice, that is the trade part. Social justice is the food security part. And fight against climate change, which has not been mentioned and which is not included in WTO norms, where trade interests do not trump labor and human rights. Alright, then trade in agri goods needs to be organized to allow countries to provide for vulnerable sections of their own population. I think this is self-understood. And trade needs to support and encourage food sovereignty. That means a country should be self-sufficient in terms of food production and food consumption. Like a country should be at least able to provide and be allowed to provide for its own population. At least that should be allowed. That means food sovereignty is very important. Otherwise, any geopolitical pressure, any economic tussle at geopolitical level can push people into hunger, into the state of hunger anytime. So small scale farmers and the rights of communities to control their own food systems instead of supporting the further dominance of corporate agri businesses. So that's our way forward. That's our way forward because we are citizens of India. So this is the way forward for us because this is our need. For citizens of USA or for any other country, the way forward can differ. But this is for India because this is what we need for our communities, for our small scale farmers, and we need to have food sovereignty in the long run because we have seen times when India was not sovereign in terms of food production or availability of food grains to feed its population. So we do not want to repeat that kind of situation, and hence also we want to become leading producers in the field of agriculture. Hence a balance has to be maintained in food security and the trade transparency. So I'm displaying the question again on the screen, guys. You can contact us, you can reach out to us, but remember that post your answers to this question in the next 48 hours, that is by Wednesday 5 p.m. Only then your answers will be eligible for free evaluation, and the evaluation that is provided by our experts is very comprehensive. I'm sure you'll definitely benefit out of it. If you're benefiting out of this initiative, then kindly look at other initiatives of EduTap by subscribing to our channel. You can also let us know in the comment section if this initiative is benefiting you, how is it benefiting you, and what additional topics that you want us to are the ones that you want us to cover. Let me know in the comment section. Also, you can send us your feedback at hello@edutap.co.in. To know about our courses, you can contact us again at the same email ID or at this number 8146207241. If you have any doubts still here, then kindly let me know in the chat section. I'll be happy to address them. Endless recreation. Okay. Thank you, Endless Recreation. I'm happy to know. Will we get this material for reference? Yes, the PDF will be uploaded on our Telegram channel. I'm repeating again, it will be uploaded in the morning tomorrow. Yes, Vijay, we have this, courses for NABARD at EduTap. Kindly contact us at this number to know about any such courses, okay? And I'm happy to know that the initiative is benefiting you. Thanks for the feedback. So guys, if there are no additional doubts coming, then let's call this a day. and I'll see you on Wednesday at 5 p.m. And for those of you who are a part of descriptive sessions live for RBI Grade B, which are being carried on, which classes for which are going on now, so I'll see you tomorrow morning. For others who are part of YouTube community, I'll see you at 5 p.m. on Wednesday. Kindly post your answers before that. All right, and take care. All the very best to all of you.